Hey guys, my name's Andrew, and I'm the Missio Day pastor here at Lake Forest. And just because if I don't say it, you'll be distracted the entire time. Yes, I blew myself up at rocking ribs. No lasting damage, just a few second-degree burns on my hand. And if you don't believe in physical healing, I'd love to tell you a story of how God's already done more than I could ask or imagine, preserving me. No, I'm not serving the church, and no, I won't stop cooking. For any event, people will let me cook. I got to, just in that accident where I got to inhabit a fireball for a minute, I got to utter some very famous words, the words, "Am I on fire?" Which, come to find out, are the exact same words my uncle said when he blew up a pig cooker cooking for his church. So it must run in the family, who knows? But today, to move us from the surreal to the sublime, to move us from something that kind of a comical error into the reality of why we're here, we want to ask a very serious question. That question that you just saw on screen a minute ago, I wonder if we could think about that a minute. What is your experience of church? You just heard a lot of people from different places express how they've seen both the beauty of church, and other people say, just flat out, I'm not a fan of church. Lake Forest is a place that for as long as I can remember has purported to be, has claimed to be, has offered to the world to be a safe place for people who've given up on church but not on God. People who've been wounded by church, people who have had good reason to leave a church, or people who have significant doubts about whether God is still active in communities of faith like this one. And it just turns out, what we've found in the last 25 years is that when you gather tens and 20s and hundreds and now thousands of sinners into a community, they tend to sin against one another. That the reality is that hurt people, and the church, a church like Lake Forest says, send me your hurt. The only qualification for being here is to have experienced brokenness, to know you don't have it all together, and to just hope, just maybe, that God might be able to use you, do something with you, and heal you. And so what we've discovered is that when you get people together in church, they will occasionally and maybe even often hurt one another. There have been times when you have hurt someone and I have hurt someone in this place. And so we lean into this question today, this question that's being asked writ large over our society, writ large over generations of people who are giving up on church. Why? Why church? Why should I go to church? Why should I participate in church? Why should I be the church? Why should I give my life to the church, let alone my 10%? Why? Why church? And I just want to jump right into it. At Lake Forest, we want to be a church for people who've given up on church. We still believe in the church of Jesus Christ because Jesus believes in the church. You see, the first time the word church appears in the New Testament, the very first time you will see that little word, church, is on the lips of Jesus in Matthew 16, verse 18. And Jesus says this word, he says, I will build my church. Whose church? His church. Not my church. Jesus' church. You and I don't have a church proper. We belong to the church that Jesus is building. It's fascinating that Jesus never commands human beings to build churches. He says, I'll build my church, you make disciples. This may seem like a small thing, but stop and think about it. I was reading a man named Leslie Newbegin who gave his entire professional working life to the mission field in India. There, as a missionary in India, saw people from Hindu and Islamic and Buddhist backgrounds come to faith in Jesus by the dozens and the hundreds. And then, after 40 years on the mission field, came back to the UK and discovered that the UK was no longer Christian. He discovered that as long as he was in India, he was seeing the church at work, and then he came back to find a dead church in the UK. And he started to ask questions 40 years ago about what does it look like to talk about Jesus in a post-Christian, pluralistic society. And he wrote this fascinating insight. He says in his observation, he makes this crazy idea. He says that the church was Jesus's idea. Not only was it Jesus' idea, it was Jesus' grand project and his ongoing gift to the world. Jesus, during his incarnation, did not write a book or outline a philosophy or even enumerate the 12 steps. Jesus created a community. Jesus invested himself in a people. Jesus built the church. And the gift he left to the world when he rose from the dead and ascended to heaven was not a book, not a handbook or a manual, but a people who carried the teachings in their minds and even more importantly, in their lives. Because the Bible is only intelligible when it is lived out in front of other people. And so the first reason we believe in church is because Jesus believes in church. But the second reason we believe in church is because Jesus is not surprised by church hurt. Jesus is not surprised by the pain and the hurt and the heartbreak and the frustration inside of churches. In fact, Jesus anticipated it. If you just read Jesus' teachings through the Gospels, now you'll see that Jesus is actually preparing the church for disappointment. He's giving them instructions on how to deal with the hurt that will inevitably happen between members and ministry partners and their families and the world at large. And so from the very beginning of his teaching, he starts to say things like when you go to church and you get there to worship and you get ready to raise your hands and say, I worship my Creator, and you remember in your head that your brother, your Christian friend, your fellow believer has something against you, go and be reconciled to them. Go and ask their forgiveness. Go and humble yourself and make amends to them. Because he knows that I'm going to sin against people and I need to know how to go and make amends to people. He keeps going. You want to know something fascinating? The second time Jesus uses the word church, the second time the word church appears, the first one is, I will build my church. The second time the word church appears in the New Testament is in the middle of a conversation on how to deal with it when somebody else sins against you. Literally, Jesus says, when your brother sins against you, go and confront him face to face. And perhaps you'll win him back. And if he won't listen to you, then take a trusted elder with you to go and be there with you. And if he won't listen to you two, then tell it to the church, and the whole church will make a plan. Isn't it fascinating? The first time Jesus says church, he says, I'm going to build it. This is going to be the thing. This is going to be my great redemption project in the world. And the second thing he says, and when the church fails, here's how you deal with it. You see, Jesus isn't surprised by it. Because the church is made up of people. And the world and the church is full of sinners and nobody else. Like, you ever think about that for a minute? The church is full of sinners and nobody else. Every one of us comes in with baggage and brokenness and hurt and pain and needs. And we know that hurt people. And yet we are a place that invites, give me your hurting, give me your poor, give me your broken, give me your people with bad habits. And so the great question is this: why does Jesus still believe in church even though he knows it's going to hurt people? Even though there's going to be conflict and argument and people are going to hurt one another and be hurt by one another inside of the life of his body. Why does he still do it this way? Why not some other way? And I think he does because Jesus looked out on a world and saw that it was already a hurting world full of people hurting one another. And so he just created a place where there was hope. There was hope for healing. And that healing happens in community. I was reminded of this when I was talking to my friend Brittany. I found her having a cup of coffee, and she was just sitting there having a cup of coffee, and I just walked over and started talking about her work. She's a special ed teacher in a public school system, and if you know anything about that role, is that kids often with special needs have a difficult time expressing their needs to other people in healthy ways, and so they lash out in anger and violence. They lash out physically and verbally against the people that are trying to serve them. And so Brittany was telling me about this incredible thing she's learned, that if she can love them more than they hate her, love will change them. If she can love them while they cuss her, while they spit at her, while they punch her and hit her, if she can continue to respond with compassion and empathy, that will change them. And they slowly change. And I was just amazed. I said, you know what that's called inside the church? Love that loves even when it's rejected. Love that risks being despised and hurt and even injured. Love that risks rejection for the sake of redemption. Does that sound like anybody to you? Sounds a whole lot like Jesus. Jesus who steps in and says, I'm going to love these people even if they kill me. And Brittany's saying, if I do the same thing, it changes them. And then she started to tell me about this one particular boy who had particularly bad behavior. He was physically violent and verbally angry, and he would lash out at her when he didn't get his way. And she realized that she had to do some professional skills and different things, but the main thing, she said, I had to keep loving him. I had to keep affirming that I wasn't going to run away and that he couldn't push me away, and that I was there for him, and I was listening, and I was trying to understand. And it's changing him. The other day, he even tried to say the word sorry for the very first time in his life. And she said, my heart just breaks because this is just a little boy. And you know that, she says, and I just think this is probably learned behavior, probably learned from his parents. And it just makes me sad. And in that moment, my heart broke. My heart was elated that this little boy has somebody in his life to love him even when he's unlovely, to love even when he fights back. And I looked at Brittany and I said, I'm so glad you're in his life, but who's going to love his parents? Who's going to love his parents who didn't learn how to love from their families, who didn't learn it in a church, who didn't learn it from the army, who didn't learn it in school, who didn't learn it on a football field? Who's going to chase after them and love them even when they're hard to love, even when they still fight back, even when they still have bad habits and hang-ups and hurts, even when they have unhealthy coping mechanisms which are destroying their lives and the community around them? Who's going to chase after them and love them even when it's hard, even when they fight back, even when they get angry? Who's not going to give up on them? Who's going to do that? Where can they go? Where can they go to learn how to be moms and dads and husbands and wives? Where can they go to learn healthy communication and honesty and humility and integrity and hope and joy and peace and patience and love and self-control? Where? And because I'm a preacher, I said all that out loud in a coffee shop with tears in my eyes. And she kind of looked at me and was like, I don't know, counseling? And I was like, you and I both know people like this don't go to counseling. It took everything in the world for me to go to counseling. I love my counselor. My wife is a counselor. But that's not going to fix it. She goes, I don't know, where can they go? And I said, I can only think of two places that love people this messed up. Two places that love people this messed up. And the second grew out of the first. The second is AA and 12-step groups like it, which just says, come on in. And that grew out of the church. It actually grew out of a church in Chicago and the Oxford group and all kinds of other things, long history there. But the first is the church. The first is the church, because the church is the place where we love people even before they are lovely. This is the place where we talk to people even before they know how to communicate effectively. This is the place where we invest in people. Even when they curse us, we bless them. Even when they sin against us, we forgive them. Even when they push us away, we keep loving them. This is a place where train wrecks are welcome and loved, even as they're transformed. And that's really good news, because I am a train wreck apart from Jesus. That's really good news, because this is a place where the only requirement for participation is a desire to know God and let him change you. Not decorum, not a diploma, not a dress code, not a certain set of behaviors that you have to get yourself cleaned up before you can walk in. The only reason you can walk in those doors is because you just want to believe that if there's healing possible, it's going to come from God. The church is only such place, and it's free. You can come in here and just sit and learn and be loved on for nothing. The church is the only place for such families. You can't learn this stuff on the TV. You can't learn this stuff by going to another place. And it's the only hope. Church is the only hope for messed up people, because it's the only hope for me. You see, I came into church with a suitcase full of resentments and a pile of regrets. I came in and I owned suits and I spoke the King's English and I had diplomas, but I was full of deceit and cowardness and people-pleasing and selfishness and hypocrisy and self-righteousness, not to mention covetousness and lust and anger. And where am I going to learn to trust Jesus with that stuff? Not just my eternal salvation. Where am I going to learn to be honest about my brokenness? Where am I going to learn the courage to tell the truth about the places that I have not surrendered to Jesus? Where am I going to learn how to be a good husband and a good dad? Is it going to be on another episode of Friends, or is it going to be another Dr. Phil special? No, it happens on things like Friday night when I blow my hand up and men show up and surround me and love on me and don't make fun of me. They teach me how to have compassion for other people. They teach me how to have compassion when they tell me about their marriage and the things that have worked. And then they tell me about their previous marriage and the things that they did that helped blow it up. And they save me from the same mistakes, because church is the place where the prideful learn humility, where the vindictive learn forgiveness, where the greedy learn generosity, where the person with no friends learns how to make friends, where the person who's never been loved learns the vulnerability of letting someone love them, where the person who's always right learns to say the words, "I was wrong," where the person who's never been good enough learns to belong, not because they are good enough, but because they are loved. The person who's emotionally absent learns to be present and listen, where the cancer patient learns to persevere, where the woman with an unplanned pregnancy learns to be a mom and learns that she doesn't have to do it all alone. There's a community that will love her. This is the place where the spoiled learn to serve, where the shy learn to talk, and where the blabbermouths learn to shut up. But these things are learned. We come in as those things, and we are changed into what we will be. But it happens inside. It can't happen out there. It can't happen away from there, but if we let it in, it means it's going to happen in here. But only in here can it happen and be healed. Only in here can it happen and there be hope. Only in here can it happen and there be redemption. Because the church is the hope of the world. The church is the hope of the world because Jesus is present. Because in church, everybody's welcome, nobody's perfect, and anything is possible. Anything is possible here because Jesus is present. Everybody's welcome. You got baggage? Come on in. You got wounds? Me too. Come on in. You got bad habits? Me too. Come on in. We'll compare notes and I'll tell you how Jesus has set me free, because anything is possible. Transformation is always possible. No one is too far gone to repent. No one is too unlovely to be loved. No one is too broken to be mended, too rebellious to be prodigal, too drunk to get sober, too sick to get healed. No one is too lost to be found, too addicted to be liberated, too deceived to get honest, too cynical to meet Jesus. Because Lake Forest, guys, we get to be the place. We get to be the place where the grace of God is as tangible and as visible as the wind in the trees and the sun on our skin. We get to be the place. Because the truth, the reality, is Jesus said it this way. He said, on this rock I will build my church. And that's not all he said. And the gates of hell will not prevail against it. The gates of hell will not prevail against it. This is attack. This is siege warfare language. But gates never attacked anybody. You've never walked up to your house and been assaulted by a chain link fence. And so who's doing the attacking? Who's on offense here? The church is taking ground back from hell as we love each other. As I'm fond of saying, as we love the hell out of one another. Quite literally, as we let each other love the hell out of as I let you love the hell out of me. Because there's a lot that got in there and it needs to be sanctified and extracted and redeemed and relearned and repurposed. And so we're all offense all the time, as Mike just said not too long ago. You see, the church is either attacking hell or the church is becoming hell. The church is either attacking hell, outward focused, all offense, doing whatever it takes to reach one more person, to connect Jesus to one more area of my life, to let Jesus heal one more hurt in my life. It's always looking to reach one more person who's full of bad habits and hang-ups and hurts. It's always looking to express hope to one more hopeless person. The church is always looking outward because as soon as we look inward, we become selfish, and hell is the most selfish place on earth. Well, not on earth, but in creation. Hell is by very definition inward-focused, me-focused, I-focused. What's in it for me? How can I use these people to get what I want? And sin is just that extension of hell that manifests itself in my own selfishness. And that's why I need you to love that out of me. Jesus said that the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And that's why the Apostle Paul says in Ephesians 3:20, this verse that we say a lot of times, he commends us. He says, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be glory in the church. Where? In the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations forever and ever. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more. Everybody say immeasurably more. Immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine. To him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus. You know how God gets glory out of his church? By doing immeasurably more than all you can ask or imagine to redeem you, to remake you, to reclaim you. And not just to reclaim you for heaven, but to get heaven inside of you so that you start walking and talking and acting like Jesus. God is able to use this vessel called the church to make you more into the image of Jesus. And this is where we get to the really hard but awesome good news. What this means is that even the things that make church hard are the very things that make church work. The very things that make church so hard are the very things that make it work. Because its goal is not to make me happy. The point of church is not my comfort. The point of church is to make me like Jesus and to give God glory in doing so. And so when I start to see this, I actually realize that this is one step further. I might even say it this way: the things that make you want to give up on church are the very things that make church work. The things that make you want to give up on church are the very things that make church work, because church is supposed to make me like Jesus. And so the brokenness can't be healed unless it's present. It can't be healed unless it's here. You've heard Mike say that the church is a hospital for sinners. I was just in a hospital Friday night, and my wife wouldn't let our kids in there because she was afraid they'd get in germs. But I needed healing. I was going in there even if they were germs, no matter what. And that's what church is. It is a hospital. Are there germs here? Yeah, but I'm so desperate for healing, I'll go in there if there's germs. Because that's the next thing. A sinner can't be saved unless they're here to hear. Faith comes from hearing, and hearing from the word of God, the Apostle Paul says. And then when somebody sins against me, I learn how to forgive. And as I forgive, I learn how to hand over my resentments. And I learn to be like Jesus. And then not only are people going to sin against me, but I'm going to sin against them. I'm going to fail you, and I'm going to have to, in humility, obey Jesus, and I'm going to have to go, and I'm going to have to tell you the truth about what I did and what it cost, and ask your forgiveness and make amends, and this is going to cure me of my arrogance and my hubris and my self-righteousness, and I'm going to learn humility, and I'm going to be more made into the image of Jesus. When I'm in church and there's irritation, like some of you are irritated by the sound of my voice. Guess what? God is using it to teach you patience if you'll let him. That may sound trite, but I'm serious. It happens to me. Differing opinions force me to learn how to listen actively and to speak clearly. And arguments inside the church with the training wheels of the Holy Spirit and the community of faith around us. Can you imagine if we actually learned to have disagreements healthily in this place? Because heaven knows it ain't happening nowhere else. Have you watched the news lately? Like, have you watched it? And so church has to be outward focused, always on it. And so I want to give you a chance to join the outward focus of the church. I'm so grateful to be part of a church like Lake Forest that is always looking to reach one more person, to reach one more neighborhood, and to start one more church. Because of your sacrifice, because of your investment of your best friends, because of your sacrifice of your hard-earned money, we have been able to plant 5 churches now. And today, this month, we are celebrating the 2nd birthday of Lake Forest U City. Check this out. Look at these pictures. God is doing immeasurably more than all we could ask or imagine at Lake Forest U City. Look at that. Today is the 10th birthday of Lake Forest Westlake. 10 years, 10 years. That's what we're clapping about. Somebody better get excited. There are men and women who are alive today because there's a church in their neighborhood over there on St. Stephen's Road. There are marriages that are unified today because there is a church in the university area. There are men and women who are walking in faith, free from things that have held them down for a long time, and recovering because you guys have planted churches. And we will continue to do whatever it takes to do that. We've planted a church in a Latino, a largely immigrant community, Huntington Green, not far away. It's 4 years old this year. And because that community doesn't have the money to pay all the bills in them of themselves with their sacrificial giving, we won't let that church not have what it needs to be a church. And so we've already laid the groundwork to start a tortilla factory that will crank out tortillas by the thousands that we will sell to fund that ministry, to make sure we can reach one more kid, one more family, one more immigrant with the love and the hope of Jesus. And you will get to taste tortillas, not from that tortilla factory, but from one like it right after this service. I bought 1,000 tortillas at a tortilla factory just so you could taste heaven. But you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait. You could show up and have fresh Mexican food and fresh bicultural food every Wednesday night and see heaven break in over at El Buen Samaritano. We have a community dinner that starts this Wednesday, every Wednesday night at 6:15. We eat dinner and we have bilingual worship. You literally show up, grab a plate of food, make a friend, and speak your second language. Some of you are like, I don't have a second language. Yeah, you do. It's called hand signals. And you'll see heaven show up and break in as we are present. And as you show up to dinner, you might see need you've been able to ignore for a long time, need that's within 3 miles of this building, need of families who are struggling financially and educationally and in all kinds of different ways. And you could partner with our friends Caterpillar Ministries and start tutoring kids every single week from elementary up through middle school, even to college prep. You could show up and make sure kids have a chance to reach their full potential. Kids who are desperately loved by God, but whose parents, because either of an educational barrier or because they're working multiple jobs to keep ends meet, don't have the support structure at home to help them with their homework. And you could be the difference between a kid being stuck in poverty and going to college and starting a business. Maybe you're like, I don't know, I'm not real good at like eating. Maybe you're like, I'm not real smart. I don't English good or Spanish good, so I can't tutor. Maybe you're like, I just like to work with my hands. Me too. And so we've actually launched something called the Care Portal in partnership with our friends alongside ministry. Care Portal is on our website, and there's a table in the lobby as you leave here. There's fresh Mexican food from community dinner and fresh tortillas from a tortilla factory like the one we're going to start. And Care Portal, you could get information about how this software will help match you to a specific need in our community. Right now, there's requests on there for beds for people who've just moved off the streets and need furniture. And there is a request for somebody to install a transmission in a truck so a family can keep their job and keep their home. There are requests for stoves and refrigerators and beds and dressers and all kinds of things. And I will go with you and help you deliver it, and we'll take other people with us, and we will be the hands and feet that make sure people have homes, because it's a whole lot easier to believe in a heavenly home when you've known an earthly one. Maybe that's not you. Maybe you're still trying to figure out, I don't know, what's my next step? And so kids, high schoolers specifically, I have something for you. Check this out. It's called Urban Plunge.
We all went to downtown Charlotte with a bunch of remixers, and we practiced volunteering for the homeless. We prayed for them. We gave them food and necessities, and it was just a really good experience to give back to the community.
Going and seeing how other people have not had it as easy as I have, and then being able to just serve them, and then seeing God through all of it was mind-boggling and changing, because it helped me share the gospel in a new way and to be more active in my community.
I think my favorite part was probably just getting to pray for people. It's such a blessing, and just learning more about them and their stories through that.
Some people, when I was walking out, I hear their life stories, and it's just so much different than mine. They had so much, I would say, wisdom to give us from their own life, what they've learned.
The ability to go out and just be companions to people and be their friends is very amazing opportunity. I would definitely recommend.
I would go to Urban Plunge again, just because all the relationships I made and the new people I met, and it was just really fun, great experience, and just to help the homeless and also just provide for them as much as we could.
Come join us for Urban Plunge on March 8th and 9th.
Grab a friend, sign up today. We'd love to have you.
You could be part of that as we partner with our friends, Watchmen of the Street, and go to where homeless people are encamped around the Charlotte metro area to extend the love of God to them before they're willing to come to church, before they even know if they want to move off the streets or not on the streets, as we give them life-saving supplies as they figure out what their next right step is. In the lobby, you'll see a camping tent with a bunch of Watchmen of the Street. You can learn about that, high school students. You can learn about that, adults. And my friend Heath would be willing to take you out any Tuesday night to love on folk who are unhoused and live in encampments. You could go with me, if that's not a long enough time, you could go with me to Asheville this summer. There's a weekend Asheville mission trip where we will go partner with House of Mercy Church, which is so incredibly good at loving people often overlooked by church. People who are homeless or coming out or in recovery, people who are formerly incarcerated. And we will go and we will learn what it looks like to be church inside the mess of that situation, and we will be astounded. Sometimes it takes more than that. Sometimes you need something to really kickstart you, looking outward, seeing your world in a whole new way. And the best tool I know for that is to invite you on a mission trip with me, to beg you, to implore you to come and to bring one of your kids to go with me. Maybe you want to go to Honduras this summer or Bolivia. I'm taking a group to Honduras. Pastor Mike is taking a group to Bolivia, where we will partner with Children's Impact Network to rescue one more orphan, to build one more wall, one more home, whatever it takes to make sure that people there, make sure that kids who are currently living on the street have a family that loves them and pours into them and cares for them even before they unlearn their bad habits and hang-ups and hurts. If you're in 4th or 5th grade or have a 4th or a 5th grader, you could go to West Virginia for a week with Daryl Lipe and partner with the Wade Center, where we will pour into a community that used to be a coal mining town and was stripped of its coal and robbed of its resources and left impoverished. And we'll do whatever they ask us to do, from packing food to painting walls to after-school care for children, whatever they ask. And you could show up and see God at work in that place. Maybe you can't give up a week this summer to travel, or even an extended weekend in Asheville. But you can serve right here this summer in an intensive way. We have 2 incredible opportunities for you to serve on mission cross-culturally to people in desperate situations. You could show up and serve at our one-team soccer camp. You could coach soccer. You could help feed. You could volunteer. You could walk kids to the bathroom. You could play soccer. You could coach soccer. Whatever it is, God's equipped you as we extend a high-quality soccer camp to children who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford the extra instruction that seems more and more required to make varsity-level high school teams. As we partner with them, you could show up and do that and taste heaven and see God at work. And this last one I'm so excited about, I can't hardly stand it. You see, the 2 things that make churches bad is, one, getting inward focused, and the second is getting so self-assured and so self-righteous, so self-exalting that we start to turn other people off. And so this year, for the first time, we have invited a missionary team to come and minister to us, to come and teach us the gospel, to come and help us appreciate the full scope of God's goodness and the full beauty of the church around the world. We will host a group of Mexican missionaries for 2 weeks who will come and labor at soccer camp and at a vacation Bible school in Huntington Green. And you could host one in your house. You could share meals and dinner times and breakfasts with someone who loves you so much that they have raised funds in Mexico in a place to travel here, to make sure that we don't just have stuff, we have spiritual wealth in Jesus. Friends, as you leave this place, don't leave without a next step. There's a table right outside here. You can write down that you're interested in one or all of these trips. There's a tent where you can learn about our homeless ministry. There is a big setup over here on the left as you're leaving that will get you plugged in for tutoring at Caterpillar, that will have more information about the Care Portal software to meet practical needs. And we'll have your invitation to community dinner. Because friends, the church can be messy, but it is a beautiful mess. Let's pray. Hey, God, I'm just so grateful that you didn't give up on your church, and that men and women who lived and died before we were born didn't give up on your church. And so we still have an opportunity to taste and see the beauty that church can be when we look outward, when we look to meet the needs around us instead of just make ourselves feel better. So we pray, God, that you would now fill us up and send us out. That you would minister to us, that you might minister through us to the hurting world. That you might heal the brokenness in us, that we might give testimony to those who still live inside their own brokenness. We give you permission to remake us in the image of Jesus, even if it involves knocking off some rough edges, even if it involves some friction. We give you permission to use us, even if it involves getting out of our comfort zone, even if it involves speaking a second language, even if it involves trying something that's really hard. Thank you for inviting us into your family. Thank you for the hope you give us for every hurt. In Jesus' name, amen.